2 or 3-year-old you know. Maybe it's your brother or sister, a cousin, a neighbor, your best friend's pesky little sibling. Maybe it's one of the kids on the other side of the maternelle fence, the ones that come to wave when you come out for recess. Think of what makes them laugh, smile, cry. Hold on to that. It's faces just like those that belong to Amy, Jonathan, and Osman, the 3 kids from the border whom my best friend Maria and I fostered. In the fall of 2018, Maria and I, like so many across the country, were glued to the TV, horrified by the footage of immigrant families being separated at the border at their living conditions of kids in cages. We felt helpless, like the problem was so immense, so much bigger than us. What could we do? We are artists. We don't have a ton of money. We're theater people, juggling multiple jobs, trying to make our own dreams come true. We were just 2 friends who didn't even live together, but we had each other, and together we would find a way because we simply had to do something, anything to help. So we decided to become foster parents and foster some of these children. All these children's journeys start pretty similarly. For our kids, all their journeys started in Honduras, their native country. But Honduras is ravaged with gang warfare, poverty, lack of medical care, to name a few. So their families, along with thousands of others, made the tough decision to leave and seek asylum in the United States. Walking and being carried by family, friends, or fellow travelers for thousands of miles, our children slowly made their way to the Texas border. Once there, children were torn away from their families and placed in holding facilities throughout the state or nearby states. Eventually, some of the children, our children, get selected to be fostered out by various charities and sent all over the country to different foster homes. When a family is matched, the child is packed up and taken to the airport in the middle of the night, where they'll be picked up and driven to the charity's designated detention center, a makeshift school where the children report every weekday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. By law in the United States, all children have the right to education, no matter their immigrant status. But these makeshift schools that the center has doesn't teach academics. They keep the kids busy, but they don't educate them. The motto being, return the child how you found them. These schools or centers are really just dressed up holding facilities, often in unregulated buildings like warehouses or factories, designed solely to hold and hide these children from the public eye. It's here where the children first come when they get off the plane, where they will get their medical intakes and finally meet their foster parents to go to the place they'll call home for the coming days, weeks, months, maybe even years, however long it takes the courts to decide their fates. It's here where they will spend their time waiting to learn what will become of them. It's here where our journey as a foster family began. Amy and Jonathan were both 3 years old when their respective families fled Honduras. They left because their homes were caught in the crossfire of gang warfare. For Amy and her family, it was the fear of violence towards women and girls that drove them to seek refuge. Her father died on the last day of their journey, and the next day, Amy, her sister, and mother crossed the border into Texas in search of asylum. For over 3 months, Amy lived with us in New York City, while her sister was fostered in Colorado, and her mother sat in the Women's Detention Center in Nevada. When Amy came to us, she was suffering from night terrors, separation anxiety, and trauma-induced memory loss. Still, Amy was brilliant and filled with light and love. She was fiercely protective of those younger than her. 3 months after she came to us, Amy was reunited with her family. We were told Amy and her family were granted asylum, but as no further contact was allowed, we can only hope that is the case, and that wherever she is, Amy and her family are safe and well. The region in Honduras that Jonathan came from was under siege with gang warfare. Resources were limited, and what little the villagers had was often taken by the gangs that terrorized them. These gangs would not only take crops and goods from the villagers, but they'd come looking for men or even boys to recruit into their militia. This is what drove Jonathan's family to leave. The fear for his father's life, for the lives of his growing brothers, for Jonathan himself, because refusal to join meant certain death. Even at the ripe old age of 3, Jonathan was an old soul. Although he came to us with a deep mistrust of adults and suffering from malnutrition, Jonathan blossomed into the robust and outgoing, imaginative boy he'd clearly once been. We continue to have contact with Jonathan and his family now that they're reunited, and we do what we can to support and help them as they await their asylum hearings and adjust to life in the United States. They say Usman, a 2-year-old boy, walked nearly 1,500 miles to the Texas border. There are currently over 500 children from the border whose parents cannot be identified because of poor record keeping when they were forcibly separated. Usman was one of those children. When Usman and his mother were separated at the border, no record was put in their files to connect them. He was classified as an unaccompanied minor and was scheduled for deportation. Usman and his mother both suffer from hemophilia, a genetic blood clotting disorder with a lifetime of treatment and no cure. His mother had made the journey to get him the medical care he needed. No record of Usman's illness was put in his files when they were separated, and it was only when his symptoms increased that we discovered he had an underlying condition. His doctors immediately changed his status, granting him medical asylum, which triggered a new search in the ICE database, and his mother was found. Within days, Usman and his mother were reunited with asylum and are now receiving proper medical care. Maria and I both work in theater, so that is our community, our family and our support system. And the love they showed us, that they showed our kids, was above and beyond anything we could have imagined. In fact, it seemed goodwill was pouring out from everywhere we looked. It wasn't just in the theaters, it was our other jobs and friends and our family and the most random strangers in this supposedly cold-hearted face of New York City. People, it seemed, when given the chance, just wanted to help, to give what they could. On Broadway, company members from the shows we worked with, like Lion King and Hamilton, Come From Away, supported and embraced our newfound family. They extended invitations to our company potlucks and parties. They gifted books, toys, clothes. They brought hand-me-downs from their own children. They even gifted the kids tickets to see their newfound friends, Scar and Rafiki and all the other characters in Lion King. Long after Amy and Jonathan left, these and other shows kept up with what updates we had to share. Even newly opened shows like What the Constitution Means to Me, who'd heard about our little ones, reached out, donating funds to help cover Jonathan's legal fees and to make Amy's dream a reality. Cast members who spoke Spanish tutored us to strengthen our language skills so we could better communicate with the kids. They took a special interest in our babies and would take time to read, play, and talk, at community events. For that brief moment, our kids were at ease. It was a world they understood, and they could communicate easily, naturally, like they had with their own families in their own homes. With the help of Macy's Santaland, we took Amy and Jonathan to see Santa's workshop. Amy's Christmas wish was for Santa to give each of her friends at the center their very own backpacks. Children at the center arrive with just the clothes on their backs. In fact, kids in foster care, they only have a few belongings, and what little they do have, they cart around in trash bags, which they use as luggage. It's the sign of a foster kid, they say jokingly, but it's truly heartbreaking. So it was important for us to make sure our kids had real backpacks and suitcases, things that made them know something belonged to them, that they were valued. But not all foster parents know this, and not all of them can do this. Amy, Jonathan, and Usman cherished their little backpacks and wore them with pride. That night, Amy's dream, a fundraiser we created to make this wish come true, was born. A week later, Amy was gone, but her wish, her dream, didn't go with her. Our community continued to raise money, and soon we had enough for all the backpacks, donations of stuffed animals, and even cards drawn by the kids of Broadway. We brought everything to her classroom and gave them to each of the classmates. Their smiles lit up the room like Christmas morning, and they beamed as they slid their backpacks proudly on their little shoulders. When Maria and I decided to foster children from the border, we had no idea that fostering children would foster change in ourselves, our children, and our community. It would highlight for all of us the deep flaws of the American justice system with issues such as immigration, asylum, child welfare, the foster care system, and so much more. On the one hand, it was just a drop in the bucket. 6 months, 3 children out of the thousands that remain in the ICE detention centers, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of domestically born children who currently sit in foster care. We hoped that we could just lessen some of the trauma for even one child who had endured family separation, neglect, mistreatment. We were lucky enough to do that for 3 of them. We hope others would follow suit and try to help even just one child by fostering or donating clothes, books, toys, even just that one little backpack, because that one will make a world of difference to a child. If even one person is moved by these stories and becomes an advocate, putting pressure on the government to do better, to stop these families from being separated or worse, lost, so that we don't create this generation of traumatized children, then there's hope. Children like Osman, Amy, Jonathan, all the thousands of kids like them, they're not broken. They're loving and brilliant, resilient kids given an unfair shake. They need our help. My hope is that more people will be outraged by what is happening, that they will find a way to take a stand and fight for these children, because they are all our children.